And we seem to be live everywhere. Welcome back, everyone. So, for those of you that missed it, basically what I'm doing here is I'm creating a process so that whenever I create a new podcast for Quasar, everything is done for me. So that's everything from cleaning the audio, releasing the podcast, and scheduling it at the correct date, figuring out when the right date to schedule it is, posting that podcast to YouTube as well and scheduling it there, and then also other stuff like pushing it to social media channels. So I want that entire process to be done for me. And all I have to do is record the podcast and basically enter a couple of details about it for things like social media sharing and all that jazz. All right. So in this video, there's one more thing that I quickly wanted to add in here. And this is related to the dashboard stuff that I think Tom made a suggestion for in the last live stream. So let me just try to get my brain back into the game here. Basically, I wanted to make it so that you can have a template related to releasing a podcast that you can kind of swap out. So we might call this something like podcast template. And then later on, when we have an interface, you'll be able to basically play around with this. So it's not really a podcast template. It's like a podcast publishing template. Hey, Tom, I just had an idea about one of the things you recommended the other day in regards to dashboard, and that's kind of what I'm smashing out now. I want to make it possible so that for you to have a template, and you can basically say, for example, when a podcast is released, I want you to do a post, I don't know, maybe like half an hour after it's released. And then I want you to do a post an hour after it's released, or maybe not an hour, but like the day after. You get the idea, though. So I'm just kind of want to flesh that out quickly before I get started with the other stuff so that I don't lose this idea. I'll keep it as a separate concept for now. And then when we're sort of going through this process, I'll start messing around there. So what do we want to have here? So it needs to be able to have social channels. So let's say social channels. What else does it need to have? It needs to have scheduling as well. So maybe we could have in here like releases, maybe. See, in that case, though, you'd kind of need to have different tweets or different like podcasts depending on what was in here. But what we could do is we could still implement this concept and just use that by default. And then later on, we can kind of expand on the concept. So social channels, and then we'll also have, I guess, the template itself. All right. And that's going to have things like the title and the description. Or really, it's probably just the description or maybe the body even. Template. So we'll call this a publishing. Publish or publishing? Yeah, publishing template. Something like that. Social channels. But maybe instead of a publishing template, we could say this. We could call this a post template, because otherwise it's going to sort of clash with the title here. But I want to be able to say. I want to be able to say when it's going to be released. Okay, hang on. This can also have an image as well. So, image path. Just got to stress my brain out so I can figure out how this is going to work here. So it will go. Will it go through the social channels? No, that'll be like a side relationship here. No, it won't. Because you might want to have like different social channels for different moments. You want to have something that basically represents a publishing time, like a point in time that you're publishing. So how about we say, and this kind of needs to represent publishing to multiple platforms. So like post, publish, event, something like that. Maybe we can use that to like form that relationship. So you've got the template. It's got multiple of these events. So let's just do that so we can imagine that we might have more than one post-publishing event. Whoops, what have I done there? On a line that sort of matches those up. And then those events will have the different social channels that are related to them. And they're also going to have a time that they're published. So let's say, for example, publish_date. Yeah, publish date. And then it will have social channels. So that'll be that'll be a one-to-many relational channels. So then we could call this, for example, post publish event. Or we might even just say publish event social channels. And then this will be, instead of posts, let's just say publish events. All right, cool. This is starting to look good now. So what we can do is we can create a template that basically says, oh, actually, no, we don't want to publish date here. We want to say, for example, days after release. Or maybe like time instead of days. Time after release. So let's go with that. Or you could say day. What about days after release and release time? Maybe that. Days after release and then release time. So you can say, for example, publish this 3 days later at 4 a.m. That's probably a better way of representing this particular piece of data. Okay. And then we've got all of the social channels. So let's represent that there can be more than one social channel. And I know I don't do this in like a traditional way. I like to do it in my own way, just in a way that makes the most sense to me. And this is kind of how I like to map it out. And then we also wanted to have not just the social channels, but also the post template is going to feed into there as well. Okay, this is perfect. Cool. So we'll be able to create something that says, when you publish a podcast, I want you to use this template. So let's just say we have 2 podcasts and you want to do something different when they publish. You can have this template that you use, and maybe like for different types of podcasts, you use different templates. Like if it's one you really like, you might use a different podcast publishing template, right? And then what it can do is you can say, when this is released, I want you to publish it. I want you to do several publishing events, right? One of them might be related to email. So maybe this one is for publishing to social channels. And then maybe there's another one over here that does more email type stuff. And it's like a day later. Or maybe you've got one that does social channels, and then you've got another one that does even more social channels over here, right? So you can imagine what that might look like. And then what it can do is you've got basically a post template, which allows you to publish to all of these different social channels like YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. I think that's a really cool concept, and it means that you can kind of expand it out as well. Cool. All right. So I feel like I've mapped that out. I'm pretty happy with that now. But this is a side idea. This is something I might implement later on because it is going to be a little bit more complex, and it does add a lot of complexity to application, but it does also make it more usable by others so that when I finish this, other people can get more use out of it. Oh, I got something in my eye. One sec. Ah. Oh, man. Oh, that stings. God, this is a live stream, that's for sure. Like something bit me on the eye, on the corner of the eye. All right, it's feeling better now. Cool. All right, so next thing we want to do, I think, by the way, I digged a little bit into this, generating cover images, and I think that I can actually make that happen based on some research I did. The only hard part is doing text size within a boxed area, but I found some code that might allow me to do that. Oh, man, my eye. Ugh. All right, so the next thing I think is to start playing around with these different APIs. Are you using any tools like Zapier for this, or completely building my own? I'm completely building my own, but you know what? That's a really good point. Maybe we could eventually integrate this with something like Zapier, or basically implement some sort of event hooks. So you know what? We need like an ideas section. I feel like I need a Tom's ideas section so I can just kind of like whack them all in here. Let's call this the ideas area. And we'll give it like a purple background like that. And I'll make this like a really big area. Bold it, make it a little bit bigger. Oh, hang on. Zoom in more. It's probably a better idea. This is a mistake I always make. I always end up zooming out too far and then I like lose perspective when I'm doing whiteboarding stuff. Cool. All right, so let's also have a concept later on down the line. I'll make this white and not translucent. Of event hooks. Why can't I write in there? Oh, I've got to set it to black. There we go. So maybe like, what are they called? Webhooks? What? Why is it not going black? Web hooks. So by using webhooks, we'll be able to use something like Zapier with our application, because currently Zapier only allows you to use official stuff, but you can actually hook into it by creating webhooks. Actually, I think maybe they are implementing some sort of like personal application functionality, but that's a conversation for another day. So yeah, using webhooks, we could easily make that possible. And basically, we just make webhooks that hook into all the different parts of this process here. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee, and let's get into the hard stuff. Oh God, I'm nervous. Nervous, but also very excited. All right, Laravel new to create a new project. What are we going to call this? How about we call this my social or something like that? That sounds pretty good. Sure. So we'll get that up and running. And I'm going to be using Tinkerwell in this. So let's open up Tinkerwell. And it's opening up on my other screen. Unfortunately, the license is expired. It only allows updates until version. All right, I might renew that license now. I love Tinkerwell. So let's just come in here. Account. Licenses and downloads. Sorry, I'm just doing something on the bottom screen to get Tinkerwell set up so I can do updates and all of that stuff. There we go. Add 1 year. Just going to give this a moment to load. Sorry, I know this is probably really boring, but man, this timing could not have been worse. The price for load can include, yeah, okay, my email address. Let's see. Email address there. Right, nearly done. Sorry, I've just got to pay for this. And hopefully this will let me put my details in easily. There we go. Yes. I'm doing stuff on the bottom screen. That's why you can't sort of see what's going on right now. Because I don't want to flash my credit card details to everybody. Yes. Okay, there we go. That's all done. Cool. Now I'll be able to use Tinkerwell. So I've renewed the license. Let me close Tinkerwell. Open it up again. I haven't ever really used Laravel before. My stack is, whoop. Sorry, I was answering that. Quasar View Firebase, what part does Laravel replace? Firebase is what it replaces. So this is the back end. If you were to want to do something like this with Firebase, in my opinion, it would be a nightmare and much more difficult. See, this makes me, when I get this question, I get really tempted to go on a massive rampage on why I love Laravel, but I'm going to avoid doing that in this live stream. But I will direct you to, if you want to learn Laravel, check out laracast.com. This is my inspiration for Quasar Casts. Laracast is, in my opinion, the best tutorial site on the planet, even better than Khan Academy. Please do a video on integrating Vue third-party plugins like Stripe, etc. with Quasar using boot file. There aren't clear tutorials on that yet. That's a great question. Honestly, I'm not sure that I'd say that's in the scope of Quasar. I guess it kind of is. I guess you could kind of do like front-end Stripe integration payment stuff with Quasar. But honestly, I wouldn't do that with Quasar. See, this is what, in fact, that kind of ties into Tom's question. If I wanted to do payments, I would use Laravel Spark for that. So I use Laravel on the back end, and they've got this tool called Spark. It's very inexpensive for what you get. So for 99 bucks, I get a project and I can start doing subscription payments with virtually no work. So this hooks into my Laravel application. It creates a separate page for your payment portal, which is really great because it means that you can't mess with the code as easily. It just sits kind of on its own area within your application, and it supports Paddle and Stripe. Paddle is fantastic. It's in my opinion better than Stripe in many ways, mostly because it makes dealing with taxes and stuff like that easier, and it allows you to do subscriptions. And I found out recently you can even do purchasing power parity using Laravel Spark. And the exciting thing about that is that means that I can offer Quasar Cast at a cheaper price to people that live in a country that have less money. In fact, Tom, I think you mentioned this in one of the comments on my podcast where I was talking about the pricing model. And so that means that in Australia, I could charge, in Australia and America, 15 bucks a month. But if you live somewhere in the world where the purchasing power is much lower, so for example, maybe $15 means something different to somebody in, I don't know, some other place in the world. I don't want to say a place just in case I'm being offensive or whatever. But for example, in a place where $15 is a lot of money, maybe they would pay, for example, $7, but of course converted to their currency. So I'm able to do purchasing power parity with Laravel Spark, and all of that purchasing stuff. Honestly, I wouldn't even bother doing it with Quasar. I would palm it all off to something else, in this case, Laravel Spark, which would handle all that for me. So that's kind of my 2 cents in that. But I probably will end up doing that down the line anyway, because I know that a lot of people probably do want to have their own implementation there, and especially like know how to test it and all that kind of stuff. All right. Anyway, moving on. What was I up to? I need update and restart. There we go. This is a Tinkerwell thing. So I just need to get all my Tinkerwell stuff up to date. Let's come in here, CD into our project. What do we call it? My dash something, my dash social. Open that in code. Exit out of that now. And I might just go to web.php, and we don't actually need that. That's going to be redundant in our app because this is just going to be a backend app to begin with. Let's jump into api.php. We actually don't even need any authentication in this application. It's not even going to have an entry point. It'll just sort of like sit on the web and access APIs on its own. What else am I doing now? The first thing we want to do is try and set up authentication with Dropbox. So let's go to Dropbox API, and we want to find a developer place for Dropbox. Integrate and run, that's for Tinkerwell. It's going to ask me to sign in. So I might just sign in on the bottom screen. This is going to be the annoying part. Since I'm going to be dealing a lot with tokens, I'm going to have to hide things a lot. Man, I feel like my internet's gone really slow today. Can't even press this sign in button. All right, give that a moment. I feel like this is going to be one of the hardest parts as well, because it's probably a slightly more complicated dealing with this API than the others. Oh gosh, it's telling me I'm out of space now. All right, let's use my other account. This is not going to be the most exhilarating live stream until I start getting to the API stuff. Probably do some application setup in the meantime. There's not really much setup to do though. I'm just going to kind of tap it. Oh, actually, no, there is setup to do because I want to use Laravel Sail. So how about with this? We say, just find out how to use Sail. Have I got a browser open here? Yep. So we'll say Laravel Sail. Get to the docs on that. And installation. There we go. Start whacking these commands in. And then we want to say sail up. I've already created the alias for that. So I think that's all I have to do. That'll be easy. Nice. Sail up. And that should build a container. Oh, I didn't publish the resources. Hang on, I thought the docs didn't tell me to do that. Oh, I'll have to do some sort of publishing so I get my composer file. So that would make sense. Let's go back into the docs and look up Sail. There we go. That's the one that I missed. Quickly. Now we want to use Postgres. We're probably going to need Redis because we're dealing with jobs. Melee search, no. Maybe Mailhog down the line. So I want to get that ready now. And that's probably about it. There we go. The scaffolding's done. Let me just check that to see if I did it properly. We got Postgres. We got Mailhog. Yep, nice. So now let's go to my env file. We're going to change the app URL to localhost 80. Let me just check I don't have any Docker stuff up at the moment. Docker PS. Sweet. Why aren't I getting any linting here? Ugh, ugly. What else have we got? So PostgreSQL, Sail and password, that's fine. Yep, I'm happy with that database name. Cool. Let's run Sail up. That's going to start doing the Docker stuff so I can do other stuff in the background while that's running. Yep, cool. All right, so I'm currently in my Dropbox. And I'm doing a search around now for API related stuff. So Dropbox API. There we go. You know, before we do that, we should probably just quickly check Laravel Dropbox. See if we can find something there. All right, but I don't just want to use it as a file storage system. I actually want to contact the API. For Dropbox, it uses. Yeah, so this might not be what I want because I want to go one step further than that and actually see what's happening inside of Dropbox. So maybe that one. Yeah, but I imagine most of these are just going to use fly system. Okay. Is there any other documentation on this? All right, let's check out that page. Once again, I don't think this is what I need. I need something a bit more. No. I might have to do this manually, or use even a combination of the two, so I can just use webhooks to sort of see what happens, and then use Freak's Dropbox thing for other stuff, for working with Dropbox API. Documentation. Dropbox API, yeah, but usage. Here we go. All right. Looks like I'm gonna have to actually read this. So, assume the authentication is using the OAuth 2 and not setting the access token in the .env directly. If setting the access code directly, don't rely on Dropbox get access token. All right. Okay, cool. Looks like this is actually going to give us everything we need. It's like a wrapper around the API. If users that have a graph token, then automatically redirect to get authenticated. Cool. All right. What about webhooks though? Does Dropbox have webhooks? So let's look up Dropbox web hooks. Because what we probably actually want to do is just create a webhook that watches for those folder changes. Which was receiving notifications. I want to know what webhooks they have available though. Oh, looks like this is going to be complicated. All right, let's actually read this. Webhooks are a way for us to get real time. Cool. Once you register UI to receive webhooks, Dropbox will send a HTTP request to the UI every time there's a change. Yeah, okay, I know that. In this tutorial, we'll walk through a very simple example that uses webhooks to convert Markdown files to HTML. Thanks to webhooks, the app will convert files as soon as they're added to Dropbox. The sample app is running it. Yep, cool. To set up a new webhook, find your app in the app console. All right, this is something I might need to do in my bottom screen. Just take my jacket off, starting to get warm here. You haven't created any apps. Okay, so I'm gonna have to create an app. That's what I'm doing on the bottom screen here. Access to all files and folders in a user directory. Yeah, I'm gonna give it full access. Name your app, and I'm gonna call this Quasar dash social. No, what did I call it? I called it my dash social. My dash social. Let's go with that. All right. So that's created the app for me. And don't think it's got any API keys that are showing here. So I can probably show you what I'm actually doing. Here we go. Team only use. I don't actually want to use OAuth 2. Hopefully I don't have to. I'd rather just set an environment variable. And we can add here a webhook URI. So let's add one that says, oh, actually now I need to be able to hit an endpoint, but I don't have anything live. So how can I even test this? Unless I use my computer's IP address and do all that fancy crap. Oh, bugger. Which makes me think maybe this would be easier to, rather than using a webhook, just to like do checks every now and then and see if anything has changed. Oh, webhooks would be a lot easier though. Yeah, how would you do this? Testing webhooks in local development. Yeah, meanwhile, the other system becomes harder. In those cases, the local URLs are not probably. Yeah, okay. Using the make sure it's running. Yeah. I used to vote. Oh, so then I'd have to use ngrok. I think basically the idea is it would proxy it from ngrok. Ugh, that sounds gross. I mean, I guess what I could do is I could just create a very basic application, push it to production so that I can start testing this stuff more simply. I couldn't really use Postman because that doesn't solve the problem. The problem that I'm having is that Dropbox is basically going to let me know when a folder has updated via a webhook, but it can't find my computer unless I do some fancy like port. I think I have to do like weird like IP forwarding stuff because the router's got its own IP address, and then I need to say when you get something from the web, then forward it to my computer, and I just don't want to go down that path. So I'm thinking it might actually be easier to push to production and then play around with it from there. First file. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's do that. I think that's a better strategy. So I'm going to get this into production sooner rather than later, so that we can start testing stuff like webhooks. Okay, we've got our Docker environment running now, so I'm actually going to close that down and then start it up again. So we'll say sail up -d, so that's in detach mode. And now we want to git a init here, git add everything, git commit message, initial commit. We need a place to push that. So now let's open up GitHub. Hang on, I want to make it so that I can use my command to open up a window. So let's get out of that. I'll leave that open. I think I can put that into there. Let's see if my macro is going to work to switch. It's not working. Hang on. Doing it with that window. So I need to do that. Or I know this is not going to be the most thrilling of live streams, but it's me kind of playing around trying to get this stuff working. I can close all of that now. Now I should be able to switch between them. Yep, there we go. So when I open Forge and GitHub. There we go. So we'll create a new repository here, and we'll call this my-social automatic social publishing for Quasar content. That'll do. Sure, let's make it public, and then we'll go ahead and create this repository. Publish an existing one. We just created it then. Whack that code in there. Give it a second. Fresh. And there we go. We've got our code on the web. Now we want to push this to production. So let me just copy that. And I might be able to use one of the servers that I currently have. I could use the Quasar Cast one or the Quasar News one. Let's use the Quasar Cast one. All right. Now I need to be careful because there is actually like some secret stuff as I scroll down the page here that shows you how you could auto deploy on my computer, which I obviously don't want to share. That won't show yet anyway. So let's come up here and we'll say the root domain is, I don't actually want a root domain because this is just going to be like an application that does work in the background. we won't use Octane. I don't think you really needed it in an app like this. Public directory. And yes, we will create a database. And I think this might actually be using MySQL behind the scenes. So maybe we don't want to create a database. Oh, I'll do it anyway. What's it called? What are they calling it here again? Let's mimic that. My_social. Cool. My social. All right. So it looks like I do need to put in the site name here. All right. What do we use? Oh, hello from Afghanistan. That's awesome. Thanks for dropping by. Bezan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's 3:55 a.m. over here. Whoa, early morning person. Anyway, 3:25 here. Time for me to go to bed. Good luck on the work. Isn't that weird how you both made a time in the morning comment at the same time? That was like a weird coincidence. But yeah, see you later, Tom. Thanks for sticking around. So I have to put something in here. So let's just say my social.io, which is probably already a site. Or how about this? We say social.quasarcast.com, even though that won't actually do anything. Cool. So we can go ahead and add that site. And then when that's added here, I can add in the Git repo, which is ldbold/my-social. Branch is called master, and we are installing composer dependencies. Throw that on the bottom screen just in case it shows stuff that it shouldn't. And now that that's going to be in production, I want to pull in a package that allows me to deal with webhooks. So let's look up Spatty webhooks. Take my headphones off. Ugh. Just try and point this at my face because my headphones start hurting after a while. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. There we go. So we want the client one, and then we might pull in the server one later on. The client one will be fine for now. Oh, that's not documentation. Let's look it up again. Laravel webhook. Cool. Let's get this installed. And then we need to do a vendor publish there. So we'll give that a second to install. There we go. We got our config file. And I'll configure that in a little bit. All right, so let's get this pushed to production now. And let's say git add dot git commit message added Laravel webhooks, push that. And now I've got Forge on the bottom screen here. And I'm going to enable quick deploy. This is something I'm doing in the background. And I can probably deploy the site now. So we did that a second ago. Actually, it is good I set a domain because now I can basically give Dropbox a place to send it. Go to web.php here. Let's re-enable that welcome page, welcome.blade.php. And we'll just put something here like, where's the content area? I don't actually want like any of this. Let's get rid of everything in the body. And then just say something like it works. Save it. All right, and let's push that again. Add dot commit message. I'm just going to start calling these WIPs because we're going to be doing a lot of pushing. And let's check if it does push successfully. I am actually checking on the bottom screen if it does. Unfortunately, Laravel shows a deployment trigger on this page, so I can't show it to you. Otherwise, you'll know my deployment trigger, which doesn't really matter that much. It just means that you can automatically deploy my app, but still, I shouldn't show that in case somebody like spams it. even though Laravel probably puts a rate limiter on it. Okay, so that's done. So I should be able to go to social.quasarcast.com. I'm not surprised that's not working because I also need to set that up in Cloudflare now. Once again, this is stuff that I can't really show you. So I have to well, I'll tell you what I'm doing though. I'm logging into Cloudflare and I'm basically setting it up so that the domain for that website we just created is going to quasarcast.com. So I'm now logging into Cloudflare, going into my site, which is quasarcast.com, going to my DNS settings, and now I'm adding a new record, which is going to be for my-social. Is that what we called the subdomain? No, we just called it social. So now I have an A record for social, which is going to basically point to my server. Copy that, paste it in there, and save it. All right. That should work. Do I have to? I don't think I need to wait for it to propagate or anything like that. I think you only have to do that the first time. So hopefully this will just work now. Nice. It does work. In fact, let me show you that. Oops, that's the IP address. It's all right. You can see that. Not a big deal. But if I say here, social.quasarcast.com. What have I done? Social.quasarcast.com. There we go. It works. So we've now got our site sitting in production, and we should be able to start implementing webhook related stuff. All right. A little bit longer than I wanted, but it always does, doesn't it? Can I just use HTTP here? Doesn't matter. Oh, no, let's do this properly. Let's set up SSL. You can do that easily with Quasar, with Laravel Forge. So I'll tell you what I'm doing now. I'm on my site and I'm clicking on the SSL tab. I'm saying clone certificate because I set one up earlier for all of my subdomains using Cloudflare because they give you really nice long-lived short certificates, so you don't have to use something like Let's Encrypt. And now I'm going to say clone a certificate. And the one I'm going to clone is for API, basically for my Quasarcast one. So let's clone that. Give it a second. Okay, that's done. So if I go to HTTPS version and I say social.quasarcast.com, is that going to work? Nope. It sends me to the admin site. Oh, I haven't activated the certificate. That'll help. Oops. Social.quasarcast.com. Let's just copy that so I've got it on the clipboard. It's done the same thing again. All right, what else can I do to test this? It might be it might have cached my redirects there, which is really annoying, but let's just try Firefox. An endpoint in Firefox to see if it's a caching issue. And it looks like it is a caching issue, which is good news. That means that it is actually working. It's just that when I hit it the first time, it cached that redirect. And so for everyone else, it will work, but for me, it won't, which is really frustrating. I still haven't figured out if anybody knows how to do this, how to remove caching for just like one specific redirect. Please let me know because that would be really handy. It's bloody frustrating when that happens. And it gives you a lot of like false positives and it's kind of hard to debug. And I have to like remove my entire cache in order to get it working. So I'm sure there's a way you can target it for that specific redirect, but I don't know how to do it. All right. So now we can say, I want you to hit that endpoint / let's just say Dropbox / webhook-test. Let's go with that. Oh, okay. Of course, that failed to verify because I haven't actually built it yet. But that's going to be the endpoint that we use. And now I need to figure out how to basically do that. It's going to ask me to do some migrations here. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say art. We can't just say art. We're using sales. We have to say sail art migrate. That's going to work for us. Oh, wow. Migrations usually never work the first time, but it did today. Tremendous. That's one of the good things about Sail. It just sets it all up for you, so it just works. Okay, so then we can say here, route webhook. At the app that sends webhooks, you probably configure it. In the routes file of your app, you must pass that route to route webhooks. Here's an example. Behind the scenes, we're sort of post route to control, but yeah, okay, cool. So means that I just use that code. Wow, Spatty's done an amazing job making this really easy. Do I do this on API though, or on web? I imagine it would actually be on API.php. Seems pretty obvious that's where it would be. Webhook receiving URL, and I want this to actually be unique, don't I? Unless I'm doing some sort of validation. I don't know if Dropbox has its own built-in validation mechanism where it sends like a token or something like that. Okay, it does. It sends a challenge. So we might actually need to look at how their API works here. It looks like they've done a bit of stuff to make sure it's protected. All right, so now we can sort of enter research phase again. So Dropbox, webhooks. And I already read the start of. To set up a new webhook, find out full URI to your webhook. Yep, so I've already done that. Note that the URI needs to be one public. Yep, that makes sense. Cool. Yep, that all makes sense. Once you enter your, this is the problem I was talking about before, which is why we need to have it like on a public IP. Once you enter your webhook URI, an initial verification request will be made to that URI. This is the part that I need to think about now. Probably would be best to use UUID for your use cases. Yeah, I probably should start using UUIDs. There are some situations where they're much easier, especially if you want to set in an ID on the client side so that you can deal with the data earlier on. Anyway, this verification is a HTTP GET request with a query parameter called challenge. Okay, I did see that before. Your app needs to respond by echoing back that challenge parameter in order to avoid introducing a yeah, okay, that makes sense. Set the following header in your response to verify the request. Okay, so that's kind of the key part there. But then where do I put the challenge in the response? The purpose of the verification is to, anyway, let's just get that part done so that I can sort of think of this like in separate parts in my brain. Webhook receiving URL, which is going to be Dropbox. What do I call this? We probably want this sitting in an env file, don't we? Yeah. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to open the env file on my bottom screen so I can start playing around with it without sharing it with you, because obviously I don't want you guys to see my env file. So let's open that. What I'm doing at the bottom screen here is I've opened Sublime. I'm going into my codes directory and I'm finding this application. What did I call it? I called it Quasar Social or something social. There we go, my social. And then let's open the .env file. There we go. I've opened that in the bottom screen so I can play with my .env without showing you. Stuff like this doesn't really matter though, but I just wanted to be prepared. And we don't need the beginning there. We just need to say, for example, it goes to Dropbox / let's just say Dropbox / webhook for now. Keep it really simple. And then what do we do? I mean, we need to do a response to that. So where's Spatty basically allowing me to respond to that? behind the scenes, this will get. Let's take a look at how it handles webhooks. First, it will verify the signature of the request is valid. If it is not, blah, 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 verifying the signature of incoming webhooks. Obviously, we'd need to implement something ourselves here. If the computer signature, creating your own signature validator, that's probably what I'll end up having to do here, or removing it entirely and just handling it myself somewhere else in the code. Here we go, processing them. After the signature is validated, the webhook profile is determined that the request should be processed. The package will store and process. The request will first be stored in the webhook calls table. Okay, cool. This is done using webhook call. Should you want to customize the table? Yeah, I don't care about that. You can change how the webhook is stored by override. Yep, that's fine. Next, the newly created webhook call model will be passed to a queued job that will process the request. Any class that extends that is a valid job. Here's an example. Okay, so So the first thing I'll probably need to do is actually handle response to valid webhook. I'll need to create my own one that sends through the challenge. So I'm not very experienced with this kind of thing. So this is all very new to me. I'm kind of learning here. So Dropbox is going to send me a request with a challenge. I will need to implement this to basically respond with the challenge so that I can then receive the data from that webhook. Data controller. But now I just want to know. So do you just have one handle method then? All right, so let's go here into webhook client, into the config for that. Signing secret, signature, webhook model. So there's nothing here that mentions dealing with the response. No. This class will verify that the content of the signature head is valid. Okay. Should be stored and processed. Okay, so let me just read the part about jobs again. It looks like that was the key. After the signature is validated, will store and process the request. The request will first be stored in the web. Okay, so it's stored in a table using the webhook call model. Right, that's this one here. Okay, so that's, I'm guessing that's the storing it in the database type part of this. Should you want to customize the table name or anything on the storage bay, you can let the package use an alternative model. A webhook storing model can be specified in the webhook underscore model. Make sure your model extends. Yeah, okay. So that's basically saying that the way I store the model, I can change that. I probably won't have to, and I hope I don't have to. Store by overrunning the store. Cool. Okay. Next, the newly created webhook model will be passed to a queued job. Oh, my girlfriend made me a smoothie. That will process the request. Any class that extends that is a valid job. Wait, okay, this is the part I don't get. Will be passed to a queued job that will process the request. Do I need to register that job somewhere so that it knows to fire it off? How does it know that when it receives the webhook that it should fire off this job? That's the part that's confusing me now. Process webhook job. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is the key here. This should be set to a class that extends the. Okay, cool. So when the webhook is successful, it's passed over to this job. All right. All right. I get it. I get it. So let's just copy the code here. So this is underscore under app job. So let's call this process webhook job. We'll do exactly what he's doing here to keep things simple. Art, no, we'll do sale, art, make, job, process, webhook, job. Second. All right, so now we can close that out and say process, webhook job. And basically this just has a handle. It's not using the constructor, and I probably won't need to either. So I want to be able to get here and know that I've gotten here. So maybe we will log something at this point, saying handle handles the job, handles the webhook. Is there a way I can kind of contains an instance of the webhook? Okay, cool. In fact, you know, let's just copy this entire thing. PHP part, they didn't like that. And does this know that it should be queued? I don't know if it does. Find out if it knows if it should be queued. Because by default, I'd be guessing that it doesn't. Yeah, okay, it does implement should queue behind the scenes. Whew, all right, so this is getting sticky, but we're almost there. So now we can say here log handles the job, and then we'll do another log that basically prints out the webhook. Core. Well, what do we have on that webhook core? Webhook core. I guess we could just say the data. Just give me the data of that. Yeah. Okay. So I can probably just literally just say this webhook core to print that out. What's its problem here? Oh, I thought that this was a Laravel like helper. Maybe it's not. All right, let's come here and say log. There we go. We have to use a facade, the log facade for that. Oops, got that in twice. Now we can say log. I guess we'll call this debug. Doesn't really matter. Paste that in there. And just to make sure I don't end up with an error here, because it looks like that might need to be a string. Does it? Yeah, that does need to be a string. So I think we might be able to call like a JSON on that or something like that. This to JSON. Yep, nice. Okay. Whew. So we now need to point to that job. And I can easily do that by saying here, app, whoops, on there, app jobs process webhook, pass it that class. Okay, so let's go over this. What should happen now is when we hit Dropbox /webhook, process webhook job should be triggered, which will then log out something that's saying that it is handling the job. So hopefully Hopefully that's going to work. I can now push this to production and test it. So let's say git add dot git commit. Once again, we'll just call this a WIP. Push that. And now in Laravel Forge, I'm going to go to the logs section. I'm doing this behind the scenes, but I might be able to show you my screen in a second here. Yeah, here we go. So basically, we should get something showing up in the log if we've gotten that far. I'm not doing any of the validation or anything like that, but I don't think that matters. Now, another thing I'm going to have to do is have a job running for this. Make sure that my Laravel jobs are running. So daemons, we basically want this to be working for us. So let's say PHP 8 artisan. How do you run job work? Because I can't even remember anymore. Let's figure out how to do it here. It's like Q work, sale art Q work. I'll install Horizon later on so I can access this more easily. The only reason I haven't installed Horizon is because in order to use Horizon, I would then have to set up authentication and all that kind of stuff. So maybe I should have just set this thing up with authentication and disabled registration and just made an account for myself. But I didn't. So artisan, and then we want to say Q work. Now that's going to be in our social app, which I believe is just social.quasarcast.com. Let's go ahead and create that and see if we don't end up with any errors. Still installing. All right, 1, 2, 3. Now we can test it. Let's say show the daemon status. Seems to be running fine. And let's just check the daemon log just to check that there's no errors there. I want to make sure, yeah, okay, I want to make sure that this is working well because this is kind of the key to giving us feedback on whether or not things have failed. So here we go. Let's go back to the log section of our site. I can close that out. Now, the next thing I need to do is basically test it with Dropbox and see if it works. Now, what do we call it again? Close that out. Let's go to API.php, Dropbox/webhook. That's what I called it. So if I go to this endpoint here, but we change this to Dropbox/webhook, rid of that. Now this should still fail. What? The domain name you entered is invalid. Really? It's invalid. I literally just used this one. Add. Oh, maybe Dropbox is messing up on me. Let's refresh that page. Does it not want the HTTPS part? I don't get it. Maybe it doesn't like having slash in there? Dropbox-webhook, would that work? I gotta say, I'm pretty baffled by this. What's wrong with that? What have I done wrong here? Oh no, that's redirected me back to admin. Oh, maybe that redirect is stuck on Dropbox's end as well. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, social Dropbox/webhook. Let me just refresh. On the bottom screen, I'm refreshing my site log to check that I've got nothing in there. In case we end up with a false positive. Let's add that. Failed to verify. Oh, we got a 404 from the server. Dropbox/webhook. It's doing a GET request? Oh, that initial request is a GET request. Ah, okay. Whereas I'm pretty sure that I read in the docs that Spatty's webhook package uses a POST request behind the scenes. Bugger. behind the scenes, this will register a post route to a controller. Getting a CSRF change, you must add the route to the accept. Oh, man. I haven't set the secret in the config, but I'm not testing that process yet. At the moment, I just want to see if we can actually get hit by the webhook. So I'm mostly testing like the usage of this package. Now, the reason that we're not picking up that webhook is because behind the scenes, Spatty is using a post request, whereas it looks like they want to verify first using a get request, which kind of makes sense. So let's just disable that. Let's remove this. Okay, I'm just thinking to myself here. So, all right, let's open the Spatty config for dealing with webhooks. And I'm not seeing anything here for changing it to a get request. This customizes if the webhook call should be stored. And yeah, no, it's not that. The response. All right, let's look at the part where they talk about where he puts the route in for the webhook. So he's got route webhooks here, but he showed another way to do it. So maybe that other way allows us to do something more custom. I remember seeing it somewhere. Oh, what's this? Because the app that sends, let's add that route to the accept array of the verify CSRF token middleware. That shouldn't matter because I'm using API.php. So, hang on. Because the app that sends webhooks to you has no way of getting it yet, that makes sense. You must add that route to the accept array. All right, but if I go to API.php, it looks like in that documentation, he's assuming that you're not putting it into API, which is weird. So maybe that documentation is slightly outdated. And they're talking about before we had an API.php file, because we used to just have a web.php file. So I'm actually going to ignore that because obviously with API, there's no CSRF token checking. A webhook profile is a class that determines if a workload should be stored. No. I remember seeing it where you could, a part of the documentation where you could manually enter them. Or maybe it's here. No, that's just talking about having multiple configs. Oh, okay, this part here. Doing it without a controller. No, this is still not giving me a way to change it to a GET request. All right, so let's go through the issues here. And maybe just say GET request, something like that. See if anyone's asked about this. Yes. To support, because it's such an uncommon thing, I'm not going to add it to the package. You can solve it by managing register a route to Spatty webhook client, webhook controller. Manually registering a route. Not really sure what he means by that. Let me read this more carefully. You can solve this by manually registering a route that sends you. Oh, okay. I think I get what he means now. I think he's basically saying route get Dropbox / webhook, and I want that to send me to there. Save that. Control click. Click that. So webhook controller. Hook controller. Okay, invoke. I don't actually know. I don't know much about that in PHP. So what is this PHP invoke? Special message whichever up it. Yeah. When a script tries to call an object as a function. Okay. Maybe this will just work then. No. What I can do is now get rid of that. Locally, I'll try and hit that. So let's come in here and say local host just to check if everything's working locally. Yep. And then we'll try and hit that route. Dropbox webhook. Is that what I called it? Dropbox. It's got to be prefixed with API. Okay, that's a good sign, I think. So where did we get to here? Cool. All right, it's getting that far. So it is invoking that. So now it's saying could not find the configuration for, and then nothing. Process. I don't understand this error. So let's just go back a bit. A bit further. Kind of want to get out of the container. Not really sure what that's about. Config for what? I have not got the best debugging skills on the planet. I might take a break in a little bit. I feel like my brain's starting to conk out. We hit that. That takes us to the webhook controller, which calls invoke. And don't worry, I'm going to undo this. I just want to do a quick check to see if I am actually hitting this by saying info. No, what is it? Log, Laravel's logger, and just say debug. Hit. Let's do that. Press the page. Check if that's actually getting hit. I think it should be. Slash. Maybe it's logs slash. It would be under storage, logs, Laravel log. It doesn't look like it's being hit. Save that, try it again. All right, so maybe I am actually doing this wrong. Maybe backtrack a little bit here. I'll undo everything, make sure it was originally. Takes in the request. Okay, and it wants the webhook config, which should be. So it looks like the problem might actually be happening here. This is starting to hit the limits of my knowledge of Laravel and PHP in a general. Okay, so I'm guessing it's trying to build itself using a service provider. So maybe it's got to do with the way I'm calling it here. You know what? Let's bring back the webhook one. And let's take a look at how it calls it. So let's go to, oh, I'd have to dig into his package. All right, let's do a little bit of diving here. Spatty, Laravel webhook client. And I'm looking for something related to, it's probably a service provider. Yes. All right. Anyway, I'm going to take a break. Thanks to everyone who's stuck around with me this far. But yeah, I need to let my mind rest a little bit and then come back to this. I'm starting to do that thing where I'm looking at the code and nothing is going on. So yeah, thanks for watching me so far, and hopefully we will make a little bit more progress in the next stream. But you know what? This is what it tends to be with coding, at least in my experience. You get through a sticky problem like this, and then things start to move really quickly until you run into another sticky problem. So this is my first one for the day, and I'll talk to you all later on when we come back to it. All right, bye for now.